Good evening, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Leslie. Leslie.
I'm only scowling because my iPad decided to not stay still. Okay, I think it's good. Good to see you all. Looks like we have a good crew here. So it is 5:31 to be precise. So trying to look and see if our full board is here. Is Elaine present? Or wait, did Elaine, no, is Elaine present? Is she still?
I do not see her, Chairwoman Castellano. I believe she's the only member not in the room.
Okay, well, we'll get started and then hope, we do have a quorum, so we can certainly conduct business. I'll just begin with a roll call and calling this meeting to order. Meredith Matthews. Here. Thanks, Director Matthews. Director Hogan is not here yet. Director Smith.
Yo.
Hi, Robin. Let's see, Director Madrone.
Present.
Thank you. Oh, and I think let's just update our agenda. We'll include that in the minutes, just updating that Director Madrone is our representative for the county of Humboldt. And Director Wilson.
Here.
Good to see you, Frank. Okay. And with that, we will move on to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the HWMA and will be enacted upon by one motion unless a specific request for review is made by a board member or a member of the public. The consent calendar will not be read. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless pulled for discussion. We have two items on the consent calendar: approving the minutes. Approving the minutes from February 22nd, 2022, the HWMA Board of Directors meeting, and B, fiscal year 2021, 2022 bank balances for December 2021 and January 2022, and expenses by vendor for January 2022. Just for the record, let's mark that Director Hogan's here too. Hi, Elaine, good to see you. Does anyone wish to pull an item from the consent calendar for discussion? Do any members of the public wish to speak on any item on the consent calendar? Okay, would anyone like to entertain a motion?
Move a motion to approve the consent agenda. That's Madrone.
Second.
I think Director Matthews already seconded it, but thanks, Robin. So we have Director Madrone making the motion and Director Matthews seconding. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Anyone abstaining? Okay, and we will just keep moving forward to oral and written communications. This is a time provided for people to address the board or to submit written communications concerning matters not on the agenda. Board members may respond to statements, but any request that requires board action will be referred to staff for review. Reasonable time limits may be imposed on both the total amount of time allocated for this item and on the time permitted to each individual speaker. Such time allotment or portion thereof shall not be transferred to other speakers. Are there any members of the public who would like to make comment at this time? I don't see any hands up. Okay, Director Fuller, has anyone reached out with oral or written communication?
Not to me, no.
Okay, all right, then we will close public comment and move on to item number 4. Receive the fiscal year 2021 audit presentation by Joseph Arch of JJ ACPA Independent Auditor.
Joseph, you're on.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Hello. My video for some reason is not working as well. Let me see if this will work. Okay, there we go. Okay, so presented are the audited financial statements for June 30, 2021. The differences between this year and the prior year are the current year doesn't show a management discussion analysis, primarily because of the change in the staff. So, you can't really talk about what you haven't been present for. So, and the audit opinion is still, it's an unmodified audit opinion, basically a clean opinion. No real changes from year to year in the accounting and the presentation from the prior year. The management letter, the communications letter that's in the back of your packet, starting on page 50 of 58, that shows that we didn't have any comments regarding the control procedures or anything, or any findings. The prior year finding was with regard to the not meeting the debt covenant, which was restated in the current year financial statements to show that the covenant restriction was actually met in the prior year. And in the current year, when you refunded the debt, there was a new debt covenant calculation that needed to be done. And that's the reason why you probably didn't meet it in the prior year. So, so that was essentially the finding was resolved, and going forward, the new calculation will be used to identify whether or not that covenant restriction is met. So, with that's kind of my presentation. If anybody has any questions, I'm here to respond.
Thank you. Do any members of the board have any questions?
Hi, this is Tracy. I do want to mention in what was reclassed this year during the audit, we were paying a lease on two large pieces of equipment, and they were being booked as leases, and they're actually fixed assets because we will acquire them at the end of their payments, which is, I think, in August, around there. So we reclassed those from lease payable to actual fixed assets. So we reclassed that with a prior year adjustment, and that is just a correction of the past.
Basically a correction of an error. That's what
Yes.
Thank you. I had one question, and I'm sure it's just a gap in my understanding. I noticed on page 5, there's, I was just doing a lot of comparing one year to the next. There's a big change in the other operating revenues. Could you speak to that? Why there's that big shift? Last year it was 477,304, and the year before it was a little over $1 million more than that.
I'd have to look at what's comprised in that number to be able to answer that question. because a lot of one-time revenues go into that category. So it could be that in 2020 you had some operating revenues that were more specifically related to operations that ran through the books in 2020, and you didn't get them again in 2021. So, but I can take that and respond to you separately afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have just a little curiosity if it was related to, CRV is something that we don't do anymore. I mean, again, I don't have, aside from any opinions about that, I was like, oh, that's sort of like been a big shift in the programming, if that would have been part of that other operating revenue category or not.
It could have very well been the fees associated with that, or even the collection fees were higher in 20 than in 21 because a lot of the COVID activities ran through the 21 fiscal year. So, so there wasn't, 20 was basically a, partial year. I've seen a lot of waste management authorities actually increase in other revenues from year to year in their normal management fee costs, but not in their one-time fees. So it's you get supportive revenues in a COVID year that you don't get in a non-COVID, what's considered a tail off or non-COVID year. So that might be what's happening with those revenues.
And then just one little kind of related question in terms of from on page 6 at the top, another kind of similar large gap in the payments to employees category under cash flows from operating activities, or a large, not gap, but difference.
Yeah, that's related to the actual salaries, and possibly if you got reimbursement of some of those salary costs, it ran through that cash receipt category. So again, that's another one that I'd have to look at, because these numbers are groups of numbers, so from different categories. And when you're looking at a cash flow statement, it's not necessarily going to be, normally you would expect that to be negative anyway, but it's more reflective of just changes in how much the payments were to the employees, but not directly. So I'll have to look at it again. It could be also there, something could have been classified as part of the payments to suppliers that was actually payments to the employees in 21. So I just have to reclass that, because the other thing that happened too is some of the accounts and the chart of accounts changed. And so our groupings may have gotten off on the statement of cash flows and not in the statement of activities. So,
right. Yeah, I did notice that there was sort of the difference in the payments to suppliers was similar to the difference in payments to employees.
Yeah, so it could very well be that there was something put up one line above that shouldn't be there. It should be in the payments to employees.
Yes.
So.
Weird.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, I guess we'll open it up to any members of the public have comment on this item. Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. Any members of the board wish to, go ahead, Supervisor Madrone.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Leslie, for your fine tooth comb and your institutional knowledge of comparing these budgets. Being new to it, that was very helpful for me to hear your questioning and to hear the responses as well. So thank you.
No problem. I think we're all learning still. So,
Yes, I had a question, Leslie.
please.
Are we still redoing the financial system, or we switched over didn't we switch the software? Or are we still in the process of?
We have switched software as of January 1st. And so it's been a lot of work bringing everything in for the first 6 months into a new software system. So some of the accounts are going to look a little different going forward, but we have corrected a lot of things that weren't necessarily done the standard way. So pretty soon we'll be able to show some financial statements. We have not put in the 21-22 budget into the new software because we're so close to the 22-23 budget.
Yes.
But yes, as of January 1st. And then what's great about that is we're able to capture all of the W-2 information for the employees out of one system. So that's going to be great. Next year's audit is going to be, again, a challenge because half the detailed information is in one system and the other half
Right.
is in the other.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, would anyone like to entertain a motion? Or do we need to make a motion to receive this, or is it just, we need to formalize that? All right,
Move to approve acceptance of the report.
thank you, Director Madrone.
I can second that.
Thanks, Director Matthews. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion passes unanimously. All right, we'll move on to standing item number 5, the SB 1383 update. And I see we have both Director Fuller and Edgar here.
Thank you, Chairman Castellano. I will kick it off. Both these items will be brief, and it'll make itself evident. They're intimately tied together, as I'm sure the board already knows. Senate Bill 1383 and CRB are hot topics. I will read my statement for Senate Bill 1383 and then defer to Evan Edgar should anyone have any questions. So, and essentially, due to the truncated timeline between today's regular meeting and the special meeting, which we held on Feb 22, HWMA staff and I have not yet been able to complete an analysis we feel comfortable bringing to the board at this time. We will continue to work with Edgar and Associates and expect to return to the board at the regular meeting scheduled for April 14th with a detailed analysis to include operational and fiscal impacts for each viable scenario. So that's where we are with it. If you have any specific SB 1383 questions that we have not already answered at this time, I will defer to Evan if you want to entertain any questions on that.
Thanks, Director Fuller. Are there any questions for Evan Edgar, Director Fuller? Okay. Evan, did you have anything you wanted to bring forward at this time?
Oh, thank you, board members. I just want to say I had a good time in Humboldt last week. I went up and saw 3 different compost facilities up Highway 1 and spent Thursday and Friday. The owner and president of Abound, Mike, met with a lot of stakeholders around the county for 2 days. And for Abound is doing the edible food recovery, and they made a lot of contacts. So that was beneficial. And my associate engineer, Omar, spent a lot of time at community compost facilities, getting ready for the grant cycle coming up. in summer, there'll be $5 million available for the grant cycle. And we want to get your community composters ready and have them join the Alliance for Community Composters, where Cal Recycle last time gave around $30,000 per site. And the average facility is up to 200 tons a year, which is not that big. It has to be 100 cubic yards. So it's small scale, and it's a good program. So we did that, and I met with a lot of stakeholders with regards to different facilities and different options on where we could transfer and process food waste. So it was a great trip up there. And from that, we did have a working document with a local task force that they have a copy of. From that, I'm going to put together a policy briefing, a 4-page policy briefing on the high notes. And so that's out for internal review with a local task force. And we hope to have comments back at the next task force meeting on April 24th, when we can really take all the information from all the stakeholders and have that like a working living document. So that's the next step in our public process of making that compliance roadmap. That's my brief report. I can answer any questions.
Director Madrone.
There we go. Getting the old mute button down. Hey, Evan, thank you for the report. I was thinking over the last couple of weeks after our last board meeting and our discussion about composting, that we're sitting here in Humboldt on this incredible opportunity to actually add an element to HWMA that is a cash input, literally a net profit opportunity for HWMA. And that is around creating our own composting systems in Humboldt that not only would take all of this green waste that's shredded along with grass clippings and along with all of our organic food waste, but combining that with all the fish waste from the Nordic aqua farms. They are going to have a massive amount of fish waste that they're currently proposing to just outfall into the ocean, which has its own potential impacts. And I'm just thinking, what an incredible opportunity for Humboldt to take all that fish waste, all of our organics, all of our shredded green waste, and make a fertilizer product that will supply all of our cities and county parks and could be an export item out of the county, literally as a prime A-grade fertilizer product. So I would love it if we could maybe get a grant to study the feasibility analysis of that as an initial step. I think Nordic Aqua Farms would be ecstatic to have a better way of handling their waste that has less environmental impact and, in fact, incredible environmental positives, as well as a potential income source, because selling that fertilizer will bring in more money than it's going to cost to produce it. At any rate, there's a lot of local experts around our community in solid waste management that have studied these kinds of things. So I just wanted to suggest to Evan and our board that there is this incredible opportunity here that we might be able to jump on, because Nordic is coming into its final phases with its EIR. And it's a great time to be thinking about these solutions for our community. So thank you.
Totally agree. We interviewed all the current composters within Humboldt County that were interested. Omar went around to a lot of sites, and we showed some interest in somebody doing a food waste compost facility at different locations in Humboldt County. So that's good news. So people do want to step up. And we've been working with Nordic from day one on the first scoping meeting, and they have a lot of good ideas. And working with Recology, Linda Wise, we actually had a phone call last week whereby some of that food waste that you produce can turn into fish food through soldier fly technologies, where with a larvae is then screened out and dried from the soldier flies, and their biosolids is as frass, which is a good compost product. So I don't think Nordic is going to dump anything in the ocean. They had plans to handle it responsibly, but they're definitely going to have opportunities within Humboldt County to make fish food out of your food waste. That's definitely a circular economy. So that's on the table, and definitely you have a lot of good players and smart people up in Humboldt that we're going to keep food waste in Humboldt County with a circular economy. So we loud and clear, and inside of the draft compliance roadmap, those options are mentioned.
Very cool. So I'm curious, a little curious about, that's all very exciting stuff. But related to this is, it's just how are the, it sounds like there's conversations happening between stakeholders. I would just hate for some stakeholder to be kind of left out of the loop or something like that. How are those meetings being organized? Are there, is there enough kind of outreach around this that we have all of the stakeholders at the table, or will there be a future process about this?
Oh, definitely. Right now it's in the hands of the local task force. We met last Thursday afternoon, and Robin's doing a great job on getting all the cities. It was a great meeting, 2.5 hours, and we went through first the administrative process of getting immediate compliance. We want near term, medium term, and long term. So we spent a lot of time on the near term on just getting the grants, getting the deferral for a year with SB 619 to have a 1-year extension without penalties. We have a workshop on the ordinance coming up on March 31st. So we have all the different, we have a model ordinance out. So we spent some time there. And right now the local task force has the entire document in their hands, and they're treating it as a working document internally and getting their arms wrapped around it. There's so many moving parts to 1383. So it was a very productive meeting after I came up in January and spent 2 months doing my homework. And so when I released this report in early March, it's 70 pages with good appendices. And another administrative deadline is April 1, where we have to do an initial jurisdictional compliance report to Tower Cycle on the status of the ordinance, who are the waste generators, who's responsible. So there was a lot of things early on we had to play catch up on, and we did that. And then we have the near term plan is trying to find options on facilities for food waste in the near term and how to transfer it and process it. And then we have the long term when we keep everything after 2027 or sooner in county. One of the things that Tom Matson said at the county for the county was there's some good industrial zoning out next to Samoa between Ecology and Nordic and the own biomass plant. There's a lot of, I looked at the zoning code, and there's good opportunities out there that could really save a lot of time on siting and a lot of time on permitting by having that zoning. So I'm looking deeper into that. So comments are going back to the authority on this working document in a couple weeks. And then in mid-April, then I'm going to present all their comments back on the next local task force meeting scheduled for April 24th. So I think the local task force is all your city staffers are doing great jobs. Thank you, Eric.
Chairwoman Castellano, just as a clarification, the LTF did not meet last week. So that was staff from participating jurisdictions. So I want to make that very clear that there was not an LTF meeting last week. It was a meeting from participating jurisdictions, and all it was just their staff meeting. As far as the education outreach stuff, HWMA obviously is intrinsically tied in the community with a lot of these folks. We deal with them, but we also make sure that when we set these meetings, we reach out to each individual jurisdiction and request that if they think of anybody that would be interested in a public meeting or a webinar or a Zoomer that Edgar puts on, that they invite those possible stakeholders. So the food waste was the edible food recovery Zoom webinar that we did with Evan Edgar last month is a perfect example. We reached out to a lot of the food banks, Food for People, and we also had each participating jurisdiction's representative reach out to potential stakeholders inside their jurisdictions in case we didn't get the full list of everybody.
That's great. And I know you said April 24th, there's a LTF local task force meeting. What time is that one in April?
I think Robin scheduled it for, I'm not sure.
I can find, we'll find out. We have a meeting between now and then, I think. And then just, oh, hey, Robin.
I have my calendar pulled up right here. It is April 25th at 11 a.m. over Zoom.
Correct.
And who's allowed to come to that? Is that open to the public?
Yep, it is a public meeting. Anybody can attend and participate during public comment. So if anybody needs access to that, eurekarecycles.com is where we post all the information, usually at least 72 hours beforehand, so the week leading up to. Also, if you want to send any special requests, we can send that directly to folks. So whatever works best for everybody.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. And then I would just say, I'm very excited that all these meetings are happening. One thing, y'all should know, your politically minded representatives really like to advertise stuff, like if they're a stakeholder, like put the word out. So, if there are these meetings, like for the edible food recovery folks, that could be something. We may not all want to do a blast for it, but if there are things or like a little visuals we can share, things like that, please do pass them on just so that we can help get the word out if that's desired. Any other questions? For updates, I don't think we necessarily do public comment, but we can, maybe I'll ask Nancy, what would be the proper protocol for this? Should I open it up to public comment?
If you want to, in your discretion, you're not required to because you're not taking any action. So it's totally up to the board.
Okay, thank you. Sure. Since this is a kind of a hot issue, we'll just see. Does anyone want to make comment on this? Okay, seeing that, we'll carry on. Okay, anything else on standing item SB 1383? Just to update for the rest of the board, we did at the last meeting decide to have a group meeting to work on this, and we haven't met yet. That's Director Matthews, Director Smith, and myself, but we are planning to meet next Tuesday, the 15th at 1 o'clock, just so the rest of the board knows what's happening with that. And with that, we'll move on to standing items.
Oh,
here.
Leslie, I had a comment, Leslie.
Yes, please.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to echo what both you and Supervisor Madrone said. I do think there's a lot of potential to coordinate with Nordic Aqua Farms, and I also wanted us to recall as a board that in October we did approve a letter of support for that special infrastructure financing district in Samoa that was briefly mentioned earlier, with kind of our eye on it for being a potential site for an organic composting facility. So I just wanted to recall everyone's memory on that. And then to what Leslie was saying, just if there are any documents or flyers or anything that would help us have discussions with constituents about what's happening. I'm getting a lot of questions, and I take notes as best I can here, and I read the minutes. But if there, it's definitely as soon as the roadmap or any policy documents are ready for circulation, that would be really helpful. As part of my job with the county, totally separate hat, I'm a member of the Humboldt Food Policy Council, and that is another realm where people have a lot of questions. There are, the Food for People is represented there, as well as North Coast Growers Association that represents a lot of our local farmers. Cal Poly Humboldt is represented, and a lot of other agencies that have an interest in this topic. And so, anything helpful that I could share with some of the other groups that I'm involved in would be great. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Hogan. Okay, and with that, we will move on to item 6, standing item CRV and recycling update.
Yes, and I don't think it will be so. Thank you, Chairman Castellano. And let me, before I proceed, Supervisor Madrone, thank you. I know your passion for composting is something that I keep trying to learn about. And I know you're very busy right now, and I hope to follow up with you on that. I really appreciate that. Folks are looking at this as an opportunity because I'm new to the game, and I've come to this with a lot to tackle, and being able to do it together and to look for solutions that can really continue to put Humboldt County over and above. I really appreciate that. It's very edifying to me. So thank you for that. Regarding CRV, everyone knows it's a hot issue, and I'm only going to say essentially what I did before in Senate Bill 1383. These two are tied together intimately, especially as might regard our Eureka Recycling Center here. So Eric and I are working diligently to vet operational and fiscal realities of what it would mean if we were to bring it here versus bring it elsewhere. And we will have a full and accurate detailed report at the next meeting. We have not had time to put that together yet. We'll present options for CRV restoration at the next meeting. I appreciate everyone's patience. I wanted to ensure that we had something that was a document that I could stand on and say, yes, we've done our homework and these are the options, so that the board could take action as it deemed fit. But I didn't want to present anything that wasn't thoroughly done. So that's where we are with that.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments related to this item? Supervisor Madrone?
Yeah, thank you for that update, Peter. And I totally appreciate wanting to have the details. I think we're all hoping that in the next week or so, the Coastal Commission will give Hambro their permits, and then they'll file their building permits. And of course, the county will get that to them in 1 week, right? I wish. But at any rate, I know we're all hoping that will come to fruition sooner than later.
Right.
Maybe take some of this issue away, but
right.
We'll see here in another week or two if it's going to go in the right direction or not.
Understood. And I appreciate the support. Thank you.
And I really appreciate you making time to meet with our little subcommittee to come find some other solutions. So thank you so much. I know that you're very busy too, so appreciate your taking a lunch hour to meet.
If there's anyone on this call who's not busy, I will be surprised. So no worries. And I'm glad, that's why I'm here. So I just appreciate, I'm learning a lot every day, and very much the support is very welcome. And I want to ensure I do due diligence with that. So thank you.
Any other comments around this item from the board? Okay. Any members of the public wish to speak on this? Okay, seeing that, we will keep moving to standing. Wow, we're just flying through. Standing item number 7, board member reports. Do any members of the board wish to make a report at this time? Okay, I don't usually speak to things outside of the subject, but I am the director of the Ink People, and we are putting on a celebration this Saturday to celebrate Libby Maynard's career. I only bring this forward now just because, she's made a lot of impact in the community. So I wanted to make sure the board was aware of that. It's going to be at 1675 Union Street from 12 to 5. Thanks, everyone. Okay, and with that, I don't think, it didn't look like anyone else had anything, their hands raised. We'll move on to the executive director's report. I turn it over to you, Director Fuller.
Executive director's report is essentially what I already talked about regarding 1383 and CRB. And also we are, of course, in the middle of transitioning software over, as Tracy mentioned, and doing the budget. So all that's going to hit in April. I'm kind of in the perfect storm of all of those things. Other than that, I don't have a report other than to say that's what we're spending our time on right now. I will say this. I do look forward to face-to-face meetings, maybe just because I'm 100 years older than everybody else on this call, but I'm an old-fashioned guy, and Zoom is great, but when it doesn't work, you might sense I get nervous about it. So that's me, not you. I hope COVID's going away, so that's now on the record.
Well, maybe that's something, thank you, Director Fuller. Our meetings used to take place at Eureka City Hall, and we are set up there for hybrid meetings where people could choose to be in on Zoom. So maybe that's something I can kind of, we can talk to in terms of like board chair to director and just explore the possibilities of bring some options back before the board.
Understood. And again, it's at the pleasure of the board and the group. I understand I'm one person among this folks. So if you sense frustration, that's part of
it. You cover your frustration well. I didn't. You seem just fine.
The other thing is I'm a morning guy, not a night guy. So at the end of the day, when I've done a whole lot of work, I'm not my best self in the evening, but oh well. Here to serve like you all. So grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you. Well, we'll come back with some options.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Whatever works. I get it.
From a Eureka City Council perspective, the hybrid meetings have been working quite well, where many of us are in council chambers, but people, it still gives people the option. I know folks who live further away may enjoy being able to Zoom in. So, it seems like there could be some things that, just create different options for people. Okay. And with that, we have just blasted through this meeting, and we will adjourn the meeting for the night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm not used to quick meetings.
I know.